Hello everybody, this is BNM1900 and welcome to a sort of tutorial for the Create mod. Now, I have no idea what I'm actually doing with this, and I just discovered this recently by doing this video. But I'm going to attempt to explain to you all of the different sorts of components that you will see in the videos. And that way you'll probably understand what I'm doing, because if you don't understand what I'm doing, you're going to be very lost. So yeah. Oh, also, this isn't just for the series. You can just watch this if you are playing the Create mod yourself and need some advice. So, let's get on with it. Now, here I have a selection of everything that you'll need to know, at least the basics. Well, quote-unquote basics. Some of this isn't exactly basics. But anyways, let's start off with kinetics, or the sources of energy. First off, we have the handle, or the hand crank. This is your first one. This is the simplest one and the easiest to craft. It does this. It just spins and that is it. This is the valve, very similar to the hand crank, except it's a bit slower, but also gives a constant rotational output instead of a variable one. Next, we have the fan. This is the one I'm probably going to be using for farms the most, and it usually uses magma blocks, but it can really use any source of heat to generate rotational energy. Next, the furnace generator. Probably the best rotational energy maker, because it has the most stress capacity, which means that it can support the most machines on it. And, well, it's powered by a furnace, making a recipe, and that powers the flywheel here. Oh, also, this is the actual furnace generator. This right here. You have to place it on the furnace, and it has to be a block away. If it's right up next to it, it will not work. Then, we have this. This is the water wheel. It spins. Next, we have the windmill. The windmill allows you to connect sails up to it, which are made using wool, sticks, and andesite alloy, which is used for basically everything in this mod. And it generates rotational energy. And the more sails you have, the more stress capacity it has, and the faster it spins. Next, we have the things that can transfer the energy. We got cogs, which obviously just spin, and similar to real life, if you put a small cog into a big cog, the big cog will be slower than the small one because of the gear ratio. But if you make a big cog spin into a small cog, the small cog will be faster. And if you repeat that again and again, big cog to small cog, it will continue to augment the rotational force. Next, we have conveyor belts. These little guys allow you to transfer rotational energy from shaft to shaft. By the way, shafts are like these, just the basic sticks, kind of. And it also allows you to, obviously, if I take an iron ingot from this chest, put it onto it, and it just transfers it. Next, we have the mixer, which, if I say I put in, let's go with copper ingots and zinc ingots. Now, this recipe makes brass, but you need to heat it from underneath with a blaze burner, which is also a part of the mixer. And the mixer goes down into this basin, which then mixes up the copper and zinc that I put in there to then make brass. Now, if I take this brass out, I can also use this, a blaze cake, to superheat the blaze. Which means that I can also do recipes like this, turning cobblestone into lava, which only works with a superheated blaze burner. Next, we have the mechanical press, which, obviously, presses things. And this is probably the first thing you're going to be making, because it's used to make iron sheets, which are used to make everything else, actually. Then, we have deployers. Deployers are probably the most useful machine in Create, because they allow you to interact with objects like a player would, meaning they can place blocks, break blocks, attack things, and basically anything else you can do. Like, use sandpaper on rose quartz to polish it, and to polish rose quartz. Or, you can also use them for sequenced assembly, which is something that a player can't actually do. And, if I look into the recipes, you can see that sequenced assembly can create things like precision mechanisms, which is something that you cannot create by yourself. As you can see, it is only craftable via sequenced assembly. Next, we have the weighted ejector, which allows you to shoot items into anything that is in a straight line from it, and it doesn't care about height either, or length. All it needs is a rotational force to reset the catapult whenever it shoots. And, as I've demonstrated here, you can shoot into any object that can contain anything, meaning like hoppers, chest, or a depot, which is what you use for sequence assembly, and it can hold a maximum of 64 items at a time, and is used for like depositing items and obviously sequenced assembly. Next, we have fans, which obviously push and pull depending on the rotational force, and there's also an extension to the fans, which is the nozzle, which if you put it on a fan, it allows the fan to shoot air out from every direction instead of just the one. Next, we have gearboxes, vertical and horizontal. Gearboxes allow you to transfer the rotational energy of something to all sides, including the top if you're using verticals. Next, we have the crushers, chutes, and crates. Now, let's start off with crates. Crates are a type of chest that you can use to adjust the amount of items you want to be able to hold into it. So you can set a maximum of items that you want. So let's say we go with, say, 46. If I put these cobblestone into it, it puts up to 46. Except you don't see it go up to 46 because of the chute beneath it, which automatically pulls 16 items at a time from the thing above it. It's like a hopper, except it can't go sideways. And it drops down into these crushers, which can crush things up, like cobblestone into gravel. And the smart chute, this thing, is the same thing as a normal chute, except it has a filter, meaning if I put a cobblestone into this and then fill this chest up with gravel, the gravel will not drop down, but the cobblestone, if I do put it in, will. And the cool part of it is that you can also use your scroll wheel to determine how much cobblestone you want to come out of it, or if you just want to set it to max. Next, we have the Millstone, which is the same thing as the crushers, but smaller. And works the same way too. If you put in stuff, crushes it, then you can pick it back up. Oh, also, safety regulation for the crushers. You can get crushed by them. And if you do, you will end up dead. And it always kills you, no matter what. Oh, also, your items will get crushed if you get killed by that too, so be careful. Which is why I always recommend putting a gear shift on them, which is the next thing that we're going to be talking about. Gear shifts allow you to reverse the rotational force of anything, which is why putting them on a crusher is a really good idea, because if the crushers are not both turning towards the middle, they will not crush anything. So, best idea is to just put a gear shift right next to it, so that you can just stop it from turning the right way. Or you can also put a clutch next to it, which, when given a signal just like the gear shift, stops rotational energy instead of reversing it. And, if you're wondering what these things on the back are, these are encased chain drives. They allow you to transfer rotational energy across them, just like the conveyor belts, except unlike the conveyor belts, they're actually way more expensive. But it's very good to use in decoration since it takes up a full block. Next, we will have the push and pull blocks. At least that's what I'm going to call them. So, first off, we have the Gantry Shaft, which allows you to spin either way the Gantry Shaft, which pushes along the Gantry Carriage. And the Gantry Carriage can hold anything on the top, just like this mechanical piston, which allows you to push and pull any block. Oh, by the way, this is a sticky one. The normal one is just push. And next, we have the mechanical bearing, which allows you to turn anything. And, if you're wondering what these things on the back are, these are linear chassis, which can connect in any direction, and, unlike most other things, you don't need super glue to make them stick to each other. Next, we have the rope and hose pulley, which go, in turn, with these. These are tanks and pumps. Tanks hold liquids, pumps obviously pump liquids. So, if I put down this hose, you can see that this is currently extracting from the hose. If I put it down into the water's gone, and it goes into here. And, let me show off the rope pulley real quick. you can put it down and up, and any block it touches, it will then attach to the bottom, which obviously applies to linear chassis as well. Then, if you look at this, pumps can also transfer their liquids to other containers, meaning that you can make an entire system in the Nether where if you put a hose down into a lava lake, you can just drain it. It is dumb and cool, too. Next off, we have the sticker, which, when given a redstone signal, sticks to any blocks that are on its sticky side. And if I stick it here, I can show these off, which are drills, saws, harvesters, and plows, which each break do their respective kind of blocks, and the plow does something special as well. So, if I just right-click this windmill bearing to update it, I can show you that when these are spinning, the plow will break any block that doesn't have a hitbox, meaning any block that you can actually just go through, such as rails. And it'll break them real quick. The harvester will automatically and instantly break any crops and replant them. The saw will obviously chop wood, and the drill will drill through blocks. And something cool about the plow is that whenever it encounters a block of dirt, it will always till the top. And if I take off this sticker, I can show you that when I turn it, it just doesn't stick. Also, whenever these things are attached to a chassis, they will automatically put their items into a chest. And this portable storage interface here, when on a moving contraption, it can interact with any other storage interface that is one block gap away. So, if I just do this real quick, you can see that these then interact and put the things that were in the chest into this, which then goes down into the chute and into the chest below. And portable fluids interfaces do the same thing, except with fluids. Then, continuing fluids, we have this, an item drain and a spout. So, the item drain drains buckets or bottles of their fluids and puts them into itself. Then you can transfer them through this, the pipes, into a spout or a fluid container. And what the spout does is, if you put it above a depot and put a bucket or a bottle on the bottom, it will fill it up with the liquid that is inside of it. And that means that if you wanted to, you could put, say, a potion of night vision into the item drain. That would fill it up with potion of night vision. And if you put a glass bottle under the spout that is then transferred into, it just puts it in. And boom, you have another potion of night vision. Next, the rotational speed controller, probably the most overpowered item in the entire game besides the deployer. Because this allows you to transform any rotational speed, say this one, which is the rotational speed of 1, into any other rotational speed. Like 64, or minus 64, or the maximum being 256. And this allows you to power machines without having to do the weird big cog into small cog. And next, to go with this, we have the mechanical crafter, which is used to automatically craft things, or is used to craft things which are too big for a normal crafting table, such as a crusher, and it can be configured into any pattern that you want, like the spiral right here. And at the very end, it'll transform into whatever you made. And it can be activated with a redstone signal, or by filling up all of the squares. Next we have this, the Redstone Link, or wireless redstone. And I will use them to show off the characteristics of these things as well. So, I'll start off by saying that these Redstone Links work from output, this little stick, to input, which is the dish, and you can change the output and input using a wrench. And so, since I set them to the same frequency, which is a shaft on the top, see, all of them are on the same, if I press this lever, they will all activate. And if you caught that, you'll know that all of these have their own little gimmicks too. Now, this is a redstone pulse repeater. It allows you to shoot out a one-tick redstone pulse whenever you want. This is a delayed repeater, which you can choose the delay that you want for it, in ticks or in seconds, or in minutes if you want to. And then, you have the delayed pulse repeater, which is it's these two combined. You can choose delay, and it pulses out when it's done. This is a toggle switch, which, if you know redstone terms, it's a T flip-flop, but in one block, which means that whenever you activate it, it'll toggle on and off. And this is a powered toggle switch. Whenever you power it, it turns on, and if you power it from the side, it turns off. And if you do any one of these more than once, it doesn't do anything. Next, we have the funnels, andesite and brass. Now, just like the smart chute, the only difference between andesite and brass is that the brass one has a filter. And if I put something into this chest, they'll put it onto the conveyor belt below. And these are andesite and brass conveyor tunnels, which the andesite one only works as a merger, which is when you put items into it from different sides, and then it'll come out the front. But the brass one works as a splitter with filters. So if I put, say, a flint filter here and a gravel filter here, and then put them into this chest, the flint will be sorted on this side, and the gravel will be sorted on this side. Next, we have the speedometer and the stressometer, which, if I use my engineer goggles, I can see that this windmill bearing is making a speed of 1 rotation per minute, and its stress is at 0% because I have not connected anything to it. But if suddenly I connect a crushing wheel to it, it'll then take up however much the crushing wheel's stress impact is, which at the moment is 8 SU, and this has a capacity of 512 SU. Next, we have the mechanical arm, and this will be demonstrated using the depots that I have shown before. Now, the mechanical arm, if I take it, which will allow you to, first off, determine what you want to take items from and what you want to put them into. And now that that's set up, if you put it down and power it with rotational energy, whatever it is assigned to, it will do. Like this. It was assigned to take items from this depot and put them into this one. Next, we have the controller rail, which, when powered, acts like a powered rail in that it pushes the minecart forward. But, unlike a powered rail, you do not need a block to go off of. The arrows just push the minecart in that direction. So if I activate this minecart will go in this direction, and because there's another one here, it'll go back. And next off, we have the cart assembler, which, when using controller rails and a minecart, you can use it to make any contraption you want attach to a minecart. So if I press this lever right here and activate this and the controller rail under it, this minecart will grab the stone block that has a drill attached to it and start going around like this. And you can also change the setting of the minecart assembler to make it lock the rotation of the minecart or to make it go towards where the movement is, like this. Next, we have the Schematic Cannon, which is probably the most useful one out of all of them, if not the most overpowered. And I know I've said that like twice already, but I mean, you'll understand why this one is. So if I take an empty schematic and put it into this, I can load up this file that I have made on my computer. And it'll transfer into this example.nbt. And if I then deploy this onto the field, I can then put in the schematic. Now, this will not automatically build it. To do that, you have to put it in the Schematic Cannon, load it with gunpowder, and press play. Now, the Schematic Cannon can place any block that is in the checks next to it, and it even remembers filters. And that means that you can use this to automatically set up any machine you've built. And the best part is that you don't even have to have built it in the world that you're placing it in, because it is a file on your computer. And the way to make these is by taking a schematic and quill, putting a first position, second position, then you can adjust it however you want by pressing Control and using your scroll wheel. And then, if you want to save it, you just press right click, put in the name, press save, and there's your blueprint that's on your computer now. And you can put in a Schematic Cannon on any server or any world and build it immediately. Next, we have a Nixie tube and the analog lever, which, as you can see, my engineer's goggles are giving me some information about this, and this number 15 might be familiar to you guys, because that is the maximum signal of redstone. This analog lever, you can manually control the signal of a redstone with it. That means that you can make it go up to 10, or make it go down to 5, or maybe up to 15. And, as you've seen, this Nixie tube can show you what the force or strength of the redstone pulse is. And if I take off my engineer's goggles, you can see that it still does it anyways. I don't need any engineer's goggles to see what I'm doing here. And finally, we have one more item. The seat. This is the most broken item in all of Create. Because when you sit in it, it may not look like much at first, but a bunch of background tasks start happening. And in this way, it is similar to the Wayward Compass from Hollow Knight. Oh, also, if you sit in it while a moving machine is working, you can go along with the machine without like having to move or anything, but that's besides the point. Besides that, it's still really overpowered, but that's like the main thing people use it for, because they don't realize its actual strength. And with that being said, thank you everybody so much for watching this video. If you liked it, hit the like button. Disliked, hit the dislike button. Subscribe. That is unconditional. You do not need to have liked or disliked the video to do that. And thank you. And have a good day.